teammates. Welcome to the Live Well podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jen Collins.
And I'm Seth Christopher. Welcome to the Well.
Good morning, Seth. It's November.
Hello, Jen. Yes, it is November.
Do you know what that means?
It's getting colder outside.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. Yes, it's freezing outside.
I think it's amazing, but that's my personal preference.
I do enjoy wearing sweatshirts and boots, so I'll give you that. But no, I like the warmer weather better. But I'm okay with it because it's November. It's all good. Are you ready to talk about what else is important in November?
I am. We've got a pretty exciting topic to talk about today.
We do. It is Diabetes Awareness Month, and our Live Well calendar, as well as our podcast and some other information we put out throughout the month, will be all things diabetes.
You're right. It's a very important month, and we're going to spend today, our first podcast of November, talking about diabetes, just kind of giving a general overview and then providing some specific ways to both prevent and treat diabetes with healthy behaviors.
Great. So let's dig in. Tell me a little bit about what is diabetes. Let's start there.
I think it's easy to think about diabetes at a high level. There's type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, essentially, your body doesn't produce enough insulin. So that's a hormone that regulates the movement of sugar into your cells to maintain normal blood sugar or glucose levels. And type 2, with this condition, your body either resists the effects of insulin or it's overproducing. So when we talk about diabetes moving forward, we're going to spend most of our time talking about type 2, although the benefits that we talk through are going to be also for everyone, even those in the type 1 population. Important note, type 2 diabetes, it's a chronic condition, and it affects the way your body metabolizes glucose or sugar, which is an important source of energy for all of us, believe it or not.
Great description, Seth. Now let's talk about who is at risk for type 2 diabetes.
Well, many Americans are at risk for type 2 diabetes, Jen. So your chances of getting it depend on a combination of risk factors. So we talk about modifiable and non-modifiable, so things you can control and things you can't control. So those include having prediabetes, which means you have high blood sugar levels that are above normal, being overweight or having a BMI classified as obese, your age, being age 45 or older, can't control that, unfortunately, although there are some of us that are still 29 for many, many years. Having a family history of diabetes, having high blood pressure, having a low level of HDLs, so having a low level of those good cholesterols, having a history of diabetes in pregnancy, an inactive lifestyle, a history of heart disease or stroke, and then smoking, all are risk factors for diabetes.
Thank you for going through those risk factors. What's interesting is you mentioned modifiable and non-modifiable. What I hear you say is that a lot of those are actually lifestyle related. So they're modifiable. They're things that we can control to a certain extent.
I agree. And we're going to spend some time talking through that today. Age, you can't control when you were born. You can't control the family that you came from. But you can definitely take control of a lot of those other things, smoking, healthy eating, physical activity, all those things, they matter.
Diabetes is a really complicated disease. So let's break it down into ways to prevent and then ways to treat the disease. So I want to talk about 3, quote, easy things that we can do. These were recommended by the Diabetes Prevention Program. So the 3 things are lose weight and keep it off, move more, and then eat healthy foods most of the time.
Lose weight, keep it off, move more, eat healthy foods most of the time. There's a common theme, Jen.
That's right. We've talked about this before, haven't we? So with the lose weight, there's really great news here because I think a lot of times when we talk about losing weight, people go, well, yeah, of course I got to lose weight. Like, yeah, whatever. And then they don't hear anything after that. So I want to make sure that we talk about some really good news. We're not talking about large amounts of weight initially. We're talking about 5 to 7% of the starting weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, your goal would be to lose 10 to 14 pounds. So that can be very doable. And if you take it in small chunks like that, can be quite successful. For moving more, we're talking about getting at least 30 minutes of physical activity 5 days a week. Make sure that you talk to your healthcare professional, especially if you have diabetes, and make sure you understand what how to be safe with exercise. And then thirdly, eat healthy foods most of the time, smaller portions, reducing your calories, and then eat lots of colors. So lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and then consuming less fat. And then especially this time of year, drink water instead of sweetened beverages. This seems to be the time of year for lots of sweetened beverages. So just being more aware.
Jen, you mentioned it in talking to a healthcare professional. Make sure you're talking to your provider, you're engaging with them, making them aware of any changes that you make. We're providing a high level of things that are most beneficial for you, but make sure that you're having those conversations with your provider before you start making drastic changes to your nutrition or to your exercise program, to make sure that you're doing the right things for you. And I do want to point out, Jen, you mentioned 5 to 7% of your starting weight. I don't think that most people are going to be asked to lose that in the first week or 2 weeks. And I know sometimes our culture, we want it now. With this, the points that we're describing, the move more, the eating healthier foods, doing a little bit more every day than you did the day before, that 5 to 7% will happen, but it's going to happen gradually. So don't try and boil the ocean, so they say.
Yeah, kind of if you move more and eat healthy foods, the weight sort of takes care of itself. So good to focus on those other two things. So great information so far. I bet you have even more good information in our next segment.
Our next segment? Do you mean fast facts?
I do. What do you have for us today?
All right, let's get started with some fast facts. Fast fact. 26 million people have some form of diabetes. 78 million have prediabetes. Fast fact. Diet and exercise have been shown to delay the onset of diabetes. Fast fact. Findings from the Nurses' Health Study and Health Professionals Follow-Up Study suggest that walking briskly for a half hour every day can reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 30%. Just as little as 30 minutes a day of walking.
Great.
Similar studies from the Black Women's Health Study showed similar diabetes prevention benefits for brisk walking of more than 5 hours per week. In fact, we're talking about walking as little as a half hour or engaging in any other low intensity exercise daily. In doing so, and you combine that with a low-fat diet, it's been shown to reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 58%.
That's a whole lot. That's pretty good.
It's a pretty nice game plan for how to reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Fast fact. Healthy eating and increased physical activity can make you more sensitive.
That's great. So we know that helps your mood. That's what you're talking about, right? Helping people with their kind of how they feel.
I thought you might ask. Maybe, yes, but not the topic of today's discussion. So healthy eating and increasing physical activity can increase insulin sensitivity in muscle cells.
Yeah.
And so the way to think about this, Jen, is that high sensitivity allows the cells of the body to use blood glucose more effectively and efficiently, which ultimately reduces the blood sugar. And this is the potential mediator to reducing diabetes risk. So in contrast, if you have a lack of exercise or poor diet, that can cause muscle cells to lose their sensitivity to insulin or becoming more insulin resistant. So the opposite end of the spectrum, which increases risk of diabetes.
So it's making the body work better with the insulin or the glucose rather that we have.
Eating healthier and engaging in more physical activity can make that happen. All right, fast fact. Studies have found that diet alone or exercise alone or combined diet and exercise, so 3 different groups here, were equally effective in reducing progression from insulin resistance to diabetes. So, important things for our teammates to consider here, whether you're approaching it through being more physically active and moderately adapting your diet, you're being more proactive with your diet and changes and slowly increasing your activity, or you're doing a combination of both, still has its benefits for reducing progression from insulin resistance to diabetes, and ultimately kind of in that pre-diabetes range as well.
So individuals can choose which activity, pardon the pun, they like. So if it's easier for someone to start walking before they make diet changes, they could do that and get somewhat of a benefit. Or if it's easier for someone to change their diet and then start exercising, they could do that too. Or for those that want to do both, they can do both. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's the important thing to take away. We could talk about the statistics on it. We could talk about the study format. I don't think that's as important as understanding, hey, it's about finding something that fits and something that you can make last. Because otherwise, again, we get into that mentality of got to have it now. I'm going to change my diet, my exercise routine. I'm going to go through this huge state of disruption in my life that's not going to set me forth in a new path, but rather just be a bump to getting back to the old routines. If you can take that mentality of a little bit at a time and you can choose which buckets are the easiest ways to get those wins and increase your efficacy or your feeling of being able to accomplish that task longer, then go for it. And so this is a great playbook.
That's great. Makes it easy and individualized for people, I think.
I agree.
So experts recommend incorporating the following suggestions into your overall healthcare regime. So let's kind of put this all together in kind of an easy picture. So exercising at least 30 minutes a day, eating low-fat, low-sugar diet, rich in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, maintain your ideal weight through sufficient exercise and well-balanced meals. Slow and steady wins the race there, right? Check your blood cholesterol at least once a year. Total cholesterol should be below 200. LDL should be, which is your lousy cholesterol, should be under 100. And then your HDL, your good cholesterol, should be above 60, with their triglycerides being below 150. Keep your blood pressure under control. Avoid smoking. Drink alcohol in moderation, and then have regular follow-ups with your doctor. So kind of a great list there of things to do to either prevent diabetes from happening, to delay the start, or if you have it, to help maintain control.
Yeah, great information there, Jen. Sort of reinforces our points. I think it's an easy list. Maybe that's something that we'll pull out and put in the show notes for teammates to have just as a potential checklist. We'll provide the source for that as well.
Great idea. Are you ready to move to our next section?
You know I am.
Let's do some Mythbusters. This is always fun. Myth number 1, it is not safe to exercise when you have diabetes. So we just talked about all this, so let's make sure we bust that. So the fact is, as we discussed, exercise is important to managing diabetes. Exercise improves the body's sensitivity to insulin, which you so beautifully laid out for us a moment ago, and can help lower the A1C. That A1C test, that's your diabetes report card, right? You get it, and it tells you what your blood glucose was over the last 3 months. As we talked about, how much is enough? At least 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous exercise like brisk walking, or you can break that into 30-minute walking sessions a day. Try to include at least 2 sessions a week of strength training as part of that routine. Myth number 2, pre-diabetes is not as serious as diabetes. So we kind of just talked about this one as well. Pre-diabetes is when your blood glucose levels are higher than normal, but not high enough for you to have the diagnosis of diabetes. So having pre-diabetes increases your risk, as we talked about, for developing type 2 diabetes. And interestingly enough, cardiovascular disease risk also goes up. So the good news is that this can be reversed through lifestyle changes, as we're talking about. And without making changes, 1 in 3 people with prediabetes will develop type 2 diabetes. So if you're getting close to that number and or your doctor's talking to you about prediabetes, great time to make some changes in your overall lifestyle to kind of delay or prevent the onset of diabetes. Lastly, myth number 3, only people who are overweight develop diabetes. So I thought this was a really great one to talk about. So the fact is, being overweight or obese is a risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes, but people who have a healthy weight can still develop type 2 diabetes. Remember when we went through those risk factors, right? That was just one of many risk factors. So it's important to know what risk factors you have, things like physical inactivity, race, age, hypertension, cholesterol, family history, any of those. If you go through the list of risk factors, and the more you have, you want to make sure that you are making changes to your modifiable risk factors and aware of those non-modifiable risk factors.
Great call out here, Jen. Being overweight or obese is a risk factor, not the risk factor. It's almost like all thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs.
That's right.
Think on that one. But yes, really glad you were able to bust those myths, because I think it's important for teammates to understand, sometimes it's just about getting started, focusing on that long-term goal of 150 minutes, and then understanding wherever you are, even if you're at risk, or if you are pre-diabetic or you are diabetic, there's opportunities to improve your overall quality of life through healthy eating, healthy lifestyles, increasing your physical activity as well.
Absolutely.
So with that said, speaking of healthy lifestyles, Jen, we talk a lot about exercise, and you've got a pretty robust background in exercise and exercise safety. So for teammates that are listening to us and like, all right, you said walking, you said do this, I need some tangible tips. What can they do to engage in exercise more safely and more efficiently?
Great. I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is something I wanted to make sure that we touched on. Individuals who have diabetes, it may not be as simple as just go take a walk. You have to be aware of how your body responds to increase exercise. Absolutely, if you're not someone who normally exercises, have a great conversation with your healthcare provider about things that you can do to exercise safely. But we're going to talk about some of those things now, but everybody's situation may be a little bit different, so talk to your provider. It's important to know that physical activity can lower your blood sugar up to 24 hours or more after your workout. And that's because of all the insulin sensitivity we've just been talking about. So it's very important to know that you may go do a 30, 60 minute, whatever exercise. You could have a reaction to that, which would be to lowering that blood sugar. If it lowers it a little bit, you may not notice, but if it lowers it into a hypoglycemic rate, then you may have some nausea, you may have some sweats that break out, you could pass out. So very important to know what to do and how to keep yourself safe.
I think that's extremely important, especially for teammates pre-diabetic or diabetic, where monitoring their blood glucose levels is imperative, for most of the day, if not every hour of their life. Hey, don't just go engage in exercise, because there are some after effects you need to be conscious of. So making sure they're staying connected to provider and getting that right instruction is important.
So you brought up a really good point about patterns, right? And so keeping track of your glucose throughout the day, that's super important. When I've talked to people with diabetes and trained people with diabetes, we check their glucose before the exercise, and then we check their glucose again after the exercise, and then sometimes 30 minutes to 60 minutes after that has that check. And it's important to know that what your levels are. So keep a log, write it down. And if you're noticing that your levels are dropping to a point where you're starting to feel like you don't feel good, take a snack with you, be aware of that. But if you don't track your blood glucose, you never know what your patterns are. So that's very important. I want to talk about the the 15-15 rule. So I came across this in my research and I thought it was pretty great. So the 15-15 rule is 4 steps. The first step, check your blood sugar. The second, if your reading is 100 milligrams or lower, have 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrate to raise your blood sugar. So what does this look like? And sometimes when we talk about grams of carbohydrate, people get a little bit but there are calculators out there to make this a little easier. But 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrate looks like 4 glucose tablets or 1 glucose gel or 4 ounces of a half a cup of, or a half a cup, 4 ounces or a half cup of juice or regular soda, not diet because we want the sugar, or 1 tablespoon of sugar or honey. Okay, did that make sense?
Yeah, I think 15 grams of sugar, something to immediately cause a response.
Perfect. Then check your blood sugar again after 15 minutes. If it is still below 100, have another serving of the 15 grams of carbohydrates. Repeat these steps every 15 minutes until your blood sugar is at least 100. If you want to continue your workout, you will usually need to take a break to treat your low blood sugar, or you may have to stop, and then once your blood sugar comes in, you start over again. So it's very, very important that when you're exercising, you know what your blood sugar is, you have the glucose tablets, the glucose gel, the soda, the honey, like any of those things as a rescue, that you have them available. The other things that I tell people is if you're going for a walk or a run outside, make sure you have a cell phone with you. You tell someone where you're going and about how long you're going to be gone. That way, if something happens, they know where to go look for you. And also wear a medical alert bracelet. That's another way that if something you pass out or something were to happen and someone came upon you, they can read and see that you're diabetic, and the emergency people will know kind of where to begin to help. So very, very important to exercise, but we must keep ourselves safe.
I really like what you did there with the 15-15 rule. Sounds like the threshold is the 100 milligrams per deciliter. So having a sense of where you are, and then trying to be as prepared as possible. I know it always sounds a little bit ominous, but just take into account, if you're diabetic, making sure that you're taking those sources with you. So those glucose tablets, those shell tubes. So great information there. I think that's extremely important, and something sometimes we overlook. It's not always as simple as, hey, I'm going to go out for a jog. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to go to the gym. You've got to take some additional steps, and I think you've put together a pretty good outline for how to do that.
Good. Yeah, it's all about safety and getting done what we can. So.
All right, this is such a great topic. Hopefully all of our teammates are able to pull something important that matters to them out of this. As always, every little bit counts. Do a little bit more today than you did yesterday. But let's shift a little bit, Jen. Let's talk about what's happening in Live Well.
We are coming to the end of our year here. 2020 is about to close out, and we have a couple of things still going on. So the first thing is our Maintain Don't Gain challenge. So this is kind of interesting. The timing of this is kind of great with what we're talking about. So the last challenge of the month is all about trying to maintain your weight through the holiday season. The average person gains between 7 and 10 pounds just in November and December. So if we look at 2020, if we stack that on top of the possible COVID-15 that some of us may have gained, that might be quite a lot of weight that we're looking at in 2021. So this challenge will run from November 21st through December 19th, and it is designed around healthy behaviors during the holidays so that we don't gain that extra weight these last 2 months. If you want to participate, it's all done through the Total Health Challenge, and there are a few behaviors listed there with points next to it, and the goal is to gain or to accumulate 168 points through the 4 weeks, and anyone who is able to do that will be put into our drawing for the end of the challenge. And then we've done several challenges this year, so everyone who's participated in a challenge will get a chance in a drawing for our last challenge. And then if you participated in all 4 challenges, you'll actually get 4 chances into our drawing. So kind of a neat way that we're doing this last challenge.
I love it. Stay engaged with Live Well. We'll try and give you some free stuff if you're lucky.
That's right. Lots of free stuff. Speaking of free stuff, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm so excited, is our virtual race, our very first ever Frosty 5K walk run race.
I think I missed an opportunity to do a drum roll there, Jen, but keep going. Sorry.
That's right. I should have kept that up better. So we're so excited. This race is called the Frosty 5K because, of course, it's going to happen here in the winter months. Each teammate who registers on the Total Health portal before November 20th will receive a race packet, which will include a race bib, which is that number thing that you put on, a water bottle, and a fleece earband. How this is going to work is everyone who is interested in participating will do their 5K walk or run the week of December 5th through December 12th. So you just have to do it one time, or you can do it over, if you just want to do a mile a day or a half mile a day, you can do that throughout the week, completely up to you. And then go to the Total Health portal and log your completion. When you're doing your walking or your running, make sure that you post your Yammer post. We're going to have a hashtag that we will put out there as soon as we get that registration link up, and we will post that link in our show notes. But this is a really exciting addition. I don't know that LiveWell's ever done a virtual race before, so we're excited to offer this to our teammates this year.
Very cool. And what a great time of year to get people outside running.
Yeah, and if you're doing the Maintain Don't Gain challenge, this kind of goes along with that too. So
great. Lots of information today, Jen. Lots on diabetes. The challenges themselves could probably take up a whole podcast. Hopefully teammates' heads aren't spinning. Why don't you recap? What did we learn today?
Great. Yes, let's go through. So first we learned that diabetes and pre-diabetes affects a whole heck of a lot of people. Those numbers, we didn't really talk about it when you said them, but those numbers are incredible. The key to prevention and treatment are those 3 things: lose weight and keep it off, 5 to 7% of your starting weight; move more, at least 30 minutes of physical activity 5 days a week; and then eating healthy foods most of the time, decreasing your portions and your calories, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, and limiting fats and sweets. Our next podcast will dig into this topic a little bit more. We didn't talk about nutrition at all today, but we will definitely do that on our next show.
We will concede to bigger brains on that topic.
Absolutely. And Seth, we've talked through so much. I want to make sure that we take a moment to talk about some of the resources that Atrium Health offers to teammates to help them work on their risk factors. So one of the first things is our ClassPass partnership. So if you haven't heard, we've partnered with ClassPass, which is a program that offers digital exercise as well as in-person classes at different gyms. Their digital platform is completely free, so you have access to lots of free exercise classes that you can do right in your home. Or if you are looking to go to a gym and you want to take classes at multiple gyms, you can use ClassPass at a cost for that. But it's a great program. We have lots of our teammates who are using the product right now. So definitely look on our fitness page for that information. We also have our on-site health clinics, our on-site care clinics, which they can offer physicals. They do disease management. Those providers are there to help our teammates with what they need. And then health coaching is another resource that we're offering. And connecting with our health coaches would be a great time to work on your weight loss, to work on building an exercise program, any of those types of things. What else are we offering at Atrium?
Jen, great resources for all teammates are based on the list that you provided. For those teammates on a Live Well health plan, you do have a couple of nice offerings. First off is the Omada Health Program. So this is the prevention program that'll be launching here in the next couple of months. It's a nice digitally based health coaching and weight loss program that's available for certain team members. You have to go through an application process. More info on that to come once we start the launch, so be on the lookout. And then we do have medical nutrition therapy that's a part of your benefit. So you get up to 6 sessions with a registered dietitian. So again, there is a process you have to go through. There's more information on the LiveWell site about that. Also be cognizant and check your benefits for additional information on medical nutrition therapy.
Great. There's so many things that we offer to our teammates here at Atrium. It's so great.
We have a very robust offering, and there's a lot of consideration that goes into putting these programs out for teammates. So hopefully everyone is taking advantage, and we just want to increase awareness about it. All right, time for call for a story. So teammates, do you want to share how you live well? Have your story shared on our next podcast by posting on the Live Well Yammer page using the hashtag #ILiveWell. That's hashtag #ILiveWell. Shoot us a message. Let us know how you're living well in all aspects of health and well-being.
We'll take any and all stories, won't we? Our next podcast topic, we are going to continue talking about diabetes, but we're going to cover the healthy eating portion and how healthy eating can affect delaying or preventing and managing diabetes. We're going to have a special guest who comes on to our show that week. So that show will be airing on November 19th.
And don't forget to visit the Live Well website for more info on beginning your exercise program, connecting with a health coach, and more info on the amazing Live Well programs available for all of our teammates.
Our resources are listed at the end of the show, and we'll add links to the programs discussed today in the comments on our Streams channel.
Looking for more things Live Well? Not following our Streams channel yet? Search The Well on Streams in Office 365 or find us on the Live Well website to access all our content.
Thanks for listening to The Well today.
Stay safe
and live well.